According to outlets such as WLBT, the Mississippi Board of Nursing has apparently launched this professional misconduct investigation against Nolan's mom, Christine Wells Winsley. And apparently there was an anonymous complaint. Well, Ben Crump, who I've mentioned represents the Wells family, said that this was, quote, a warning shot to essentially intimidate Christine.
The Mississippi Board of Nursing opens a professional misconduct investigation. The target, Christine Wells Winsley. Her offense, asking too many questions about how her 18-year-old son died. The complaint arrives anonymously. No name, no face, no accountability. Just a letter and a threat.
Highlights that she has never had a complaint before. He said, quote, attacking a grieving mother's career does not answer the question of what happened to Nolan. It tells us the question matters and the answer is scaring somebody. We will keep asking questions and demanding the...
Ben Crump, representing the Wells family, reads the situation aloud for the record. Attacking a grieving mother's career does not answer the question of what happened to Nolan. It tells us the question matters and the answer is scaring somebody. Not a theory. Not speculation. A statement submitted into the public domain by an officer of the court.
Is an anonymous complaint. Well, Ben Crump, who I've mentioned represents the Wells family, said that this was, quote, a warning shot to essentially intimidate Christine.
Picture a license to practice nursing. A laminated card in a wallet. Carried through every shift, every patient, every year of a career spanning decades without a single complaint. Now picture that same card suddenly under review. Not because of a medical error, but because your son went missing on a July 4th boating trip, and you refused to accept the first story you were told. The paperwork already knew.
The Mississippi Board of Nursing has now closed this professional misconduct case, saying, quote, thank you to all of those who have constantly...
Here is where the record corrects itself. Christine announces on social media that the Mississippi Board of Nursing has closed the case. The anonymous complaint collapses under zero weight. The investigation ends. But the question it was designed to silence remains very much alive.
Think about this. Whether the allegations in that anonymous complaint were true or not, it seems, it being dropped, probably weren't. But the timing of it is suspicious. Does Ben Crump have a point about this, about potentially weaponizing different legal systems in this search for the truth?
Well, I think you have to say that the timing is at least suspicious. If it's true that she's never had a...
The timing is the evidence. A clean professional record, no complaints. No disciplinary actions. Then an active death investigation attracts national attention, and suddenly an anonymous complaint materializes. As legal analyst Rich Shenstein put it, when you have a spotless career, and then an anonymous filing drops in the middle of a public inquiry, the timing is at least suspicious. And that complaint needs to be scrutinized.
To me, it supports the argument. This is why the family got outside counsel. This is why they've moved forward with an independent investigation. Because the idea would be...
This is not a new tactic. It is a well-worn page from an old playbook. When the facts are not on your side, you target the messenger. You file complaints. You open investigations. You make vulnerable people wonder if speaking up will cost them their livelihood. The goal is not to win the complaint. The goal is to send a signal asking questions carries consequences.
Hired attorney Ben Crump to navigate this situation for them. They ordered an independent autopsy of Nolan's body, but the cause and manner of death were undetermined. From that examination, we do know, based on reporting, the official state medical examination has reportedly been completed, presumably with the toxicology report, but we don't know the result.
18 years old, a college football player. Missing after a July 4th boating trip to Horn Island, Mississippi. His body found 2 days later, washed ashore. The family ordered an independent autopsy. The cause and manner of death came back undetermined. The official state medical examination has been completed. The results are sealed, held until a grand jury reviews the case file. No timeline, no updates. The paperwork already knew.
There is a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to Ben Crump's role, Nolan's purported friends. The question becomes, is there a line? What is the line? Has anyone crossed the line? A lot of moving parts about this, so I want to talk about it. Okay, so this is where I bring in Rich Schoenstein, okay, litigator who knows the ins and outs of things like this. Rich, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to see you.
Meanwhile, 3 people face criminal charges for making threats related to this case. Strangers to the family, strangers to the investigation. A judge's son was on that boat. A legal defense fund swells past $158,000. Lawyers hire lawyers. Witnesses go into hiding. Subpoenas fly toward TikTok, Snapchat, Meta, Life 360. Every mechanism of the legal system is now activated, and the question becomes who activated what and when.
I've talked about this before. People are getting arrested for making threats. The family has talked about being harassed. The purported friends of Nolan claim that they're getting harassed, which I'm going to get into a little bit more. But have you seen anything like this before? There's one thing. It's an investigation to find out what happened to Nolan, and now you're seeing lawyers getting involved and people lawyering up. And
it is one thing to investigate a death. It is another to watch the machinery around that death multiply into civil claims, defamation threats, cease and desist letters, and professional board complaints. When the legal system becomes both the arena and the weapon, you have to ask what exactly is everyone so afraid of finding.
For example, they have pushed back on accounts that Nolan would have stayed on Horn Island without his friends, which is something that has, been amplified by those who were with Nolan that day. They have made claims that information from Nolan's phone may have been tampered with, deleted. They have seemingly pushed back on the idea of whether Trayston Shepard, who has come...
The family has pushed back on accounts that Nolan would have stayed on Horn Island alone. They have raised questions about whether information on his phone was deleted. They have questioned the narrative of heavy drinking, pointing to a coach who saw Nolan that afternoon, coherent, planning his future, perfectly fine. These are not accusations. These are questions, and questions are not supposed to trigger anonymous complaints to licensing boards.
Their families have launched this legal defense fund on Give, Send, Go. Currently raised at the time of this recording over $158,000. I'm going to read you a portion of what it says. It says, quote, "No friend should have to grieve the loss of a brother. But instead of being allowed to mourn, what followed was an unprecedented online campaign of accusations, harassment, threats, and defamation. Since Nolan's death, Warren Hudson, Jack Spatalo, Morgan Seymour, and many others have been inundated with death threats, threats of violence, and defamation. They have been falsely and wrongly blamed by individuals online and in the media of either directly or indirectly having a hand in Nolan's death. Most of them could not even attend their own best friend's funeral."
Then the counter narrative arrives, fully funded and lawyered. A legal defense fund for Nolan's companions on the boat issues a statement accusing the family's attorney of stirring division, ruining lives, and leaving when the money dries up. They say evidence belongs in the hands of law enforcement, not online mobs. A valid point. But evidence also belongs outside the jurisdiction of anonymous complainants who file reports and then disappear.
The goal is simple and twofold. Our first goal is to raise money to defend these friends against incoming wrongful death actions filed by attorney Ben Crump and his team. Our second goal is to fund a robust legal team to sue for the litany of slander and libel being spread.
The fund's stated purpose is twofold. First, defend against incoming wrongful death actions. Second, sue for slander and libel. The document reads less like a legal defense fund and more like a preemptive strike. A declaration of war filed before the first lawsuit even lands.
That's the way I'm reading it, that Nolan's family would sue, right? Because there are kind of hints, right? Nolan's mom has appeared to file these subpoenas for records from social media companies, TikTok, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Meta, Life 360. This is part of the legal case regarding the estate of Nolan Wells, seeks all this kind of information. It was also reported by People magazine that a preservation notice for evidence was sent by Nolan's.
And here the paths diverge. The family issues subpoenas to social media companies. They send preservation notices. Formal legal demands that evidence not be destroyed. To the families of those on the boat, including a judge. Every document requested is a document someone may prefer stay buried. Every preservation notice is a statement we believe something exists worth preserving.
And all of a sudden there's an anonymous complaint out of the blue. You would say at least that timing is suspicious and that complaint needs to be scrutinized.
To me, it supports the argument. This is why the family got outside counsel. This is why they've moved forward with an independent investigation, because the idea would be that they are vulnerable. They are vulnerable to, I think the argument is that this could have been all swept up under the rug.
You do not file preservation notices if you trust the process is working. You do not send subpoenas if you believe the truth is already being told. The family hired outside counsel. They moved forward with an independent investigation. The argument, as Shenstein noted, is that without these steps, this could have been swept under the rug. A quick investigation concluding a tragic accident, and a file closed before anyone looked too closely.
The same goal in mind. The goal is to determine how this young man died and figure out if anybody is responsible that needs to be charged for that. And everything that's done ought to...
The goal is to determine how this young man died and figure out if anybody is responsible. Everything done ought to contribute, or at least not detract, from that goal. Every action, the complaint, the fund, the subpoenas, the statements, must be measured against that single standard. Does it move the investigation forward, or does it throw sand in the gears?
What happened to Nolan? It tells us the question matters, and the answer is scaring somebody. We will keep asking questions and demanding the facts until Christine knows how her son died. Not until a grand jury convenes. Not until a report is filed. Until the mother knows. That is the line. And crossing it should not cost anyone their career. The paperwork already knew.
Yeah, so in a lot of cases, you really want to wait, if you can, until after the criminal proceedings are over, if there are any, to bring civil litigation. So if you're going to be a witness and you can wait, you have to worry about statute of limitations, which can be kind of quick on things like wrongful death actions. But you may want to hold your powder on your civil case until you've done all your testifying in a criminal case, precisely to avoid the kind of thing you're talking about. And also because you can't really proceed with civil litigation until the criminal component is done if you're suing people who face criminal charges.
Every witness in this case now faces a critical choice. If a civil case moves forward, every deposition becomes a tightrope walk between protecting legal interests and exposing the truth. Criminal defendants do not testify in civil cases while criminal proceedings remain open. The entire apparatus stalls, and a mother is left waiting, again, for an answer someone out there already has.
Highlights that she has never had a complaint before. He said, quote, attacking a grieving mother's career does not answer the question of...
One final irony. Before the complaint was filed, Christine Wells Winsley had never been investigated. Her record was clean, her career was intact. The moment she became a mother demanding answers, that changed. The complaint has since been closed. The board moved on, but the message was delivered. And messages like that do not disappear just because the case does.
The Mississippi Board of Nursing has now closed this professional misconduct case, saying, quote, thank you to all of those who have constantly...
The investigation into Nolan Wells remains open. The grand jury has not yet acted. The sealed toxicology report sits in a file somewhere waiting. If you want to follow the evidence yourself, the preservation notices, subpoenas, and public filings from the estate proceedings are accessible through the appropriate Mississippi court records. One question to answer in the comments. If the complaint was truly about professional misconduct, why did it arrive anonymously, and why did it disappear the moment the public started watching?